I'm arguing against the claim that abortion causes a huge negative effect on society. The two supporting claims are ex-mothers suffer major consequences from abortion, and two, that abortion causes irresponsibility. My response to the claim is that there's not enough information to prove that it has a negative effect on society. The first secondary claim, that ex-mothers suffer huge consequences after abortion, the advocate says that abortion may cause death, while on this website, go and check it. It says in very rare cases, death may occur as a direct result of abortion. The reasons are not always known, and the risk of the death is possible with any type of abortion, whether surgical or non-surgical. However, it is usually caused by excessive bleeding or untreated infection. This is not necessarily always going to happen. Since it's caused by untreated infection, that's negligence to the person who had the abortion. If they went to regular checkups and did this, then that would mean that abortion does not always lead to death, and it's very rare. So, out of all the people that do have abortions, the advocate also states that fatal does happen, but it's very rare and unlikely to happen. But even if you're not getting abortion, you are still at risk. If you're not getting abortion, then you are not even included in the effect to society. You are not included in this. And Glemschick also says that the number of women who experience abortion side effects to the extreme degree is very small, that it's almost negligible. If there is barely anyone who even has these fatal reactions or even seriously injured by this, then it shouldn't be included in the speech, therefore it is not supporting it. To the secondary claim supporting that abortion causes irresponsibility, there is only one evidence given that shows that the increasing amount of victims of abortion has gone up within the past couple of years. You cannot say that just because it has increased, that means that they're becoming more irresponsible. And just because teens are becoming more pregnant does not mean they're more irresponsible. They could just be making bad decisions. They could have never been shown that they needed to use protection, or they could just not have been raised to prevent these things. Just because they are irresponsible doesn't mean that they have a huge negative effect on society. In fact, this is only one type of thing of irresponsible. It's not everyone. Not everyone who has an abortion is irresponsible. Maybe they are not responsible enough to take care of the child, so they take an abortion, or maybe having a child would be more riskful than actually getting rid of the child that they have. There was, in the first two supporting claims, there was not a lot of evidence showing that it hugely affected society. They showed that teens are becoming irresponsible because of the increasing amount of abortions, but just that statistic alone does not prove their irresponsibility. It is also only specific to teenagers and not society, showing no negative effects directly related to society, showing that they would not get pregnant just because they have a choice to take abortion. The speech altogether leaves the huge questions among how many percentage of the people actually did have fatal reactions or fatal consequences of the surgery. There was not a lot of statistical information given on how deadly it can be or the side effects that are caused by it. Therefore, I say that there is not enough information given to show that it has negative effects on society.
All right, well, it started off pretty clear with the label of the secondary claims and what the main proposition was. Your general argument seems to be that there's, whether or not there is a sufficient amount of proof on those arguments, and I think that that's a reasonable argument to use as a standard here. On the first point, you're basically talking about what the risks are to people who have abortions. And you raise a lot of questions. You've got some definitional issues, some reasons why women who have abortions might die. But you don't provide any contrary statistic to the advocate's point. You barely mention what the advocate's evidence on this particular point was. And I thought that an absence of any hard data on your behalf really suggests that it's almost it is not kind of response. You need to have something more to it than that. And I don't think you would have a hard time finding evidence on this particular point. The truth of the matter is that people dying as a result of abortion is relatively small. And one other piece of information out there is I thought it was strange that you didn't even talk about what the risk is to people who don't have abortions who are pregnant. What's the risk of death from delivering a child or carrying a child in comparison? I think that's a piece of evidence that would make your argument here a lot more meaningful, but it really just sounds like you're sort of saying, well, he didn't really have any evidence, and you ask a couple of good questions about it, but it's not coming off as a very forceful response there. It's kind of a passive response. It's the kind of response that you might get immediately after the argument was presented. In other words, if we were doing a debate like we're going to be doing on the next assignment, if you didn't know ahead of time what the advocate's argument was going to be, and you had to respond immediately, I think you've got some pretty reasonable presses. But you did have, a couple of weeks to get ready, and so it really feels like there's just a lack of weight to some of the arguments. And the same problem is true on the second one. There's a question about responsibility. I think you've got an interesting press about, well, what is responsibility really about? Maybe it's more responsible not to have the child because you couldn't do that. I think that's an interesting idea, but it doesn't get developed. There's no proof that anybody is really doing that. I don't remember what the advocate's evidence on this particular point was, and I think that that's one of the things that you needed to talk more about. What kind of evidence did they present? Was there any evidence that showed that people were getting abortions instead of using contraception? That they were getting abortions, that it was that they had a second, third, fourth, and fifth abortion? That would suggest a lack of responsibility. And if they had evidence like that, then you definitely needed to have a response to it. But if they didn't have evidence like that, that's what you need to point out. How do we know that this was irresponsible? How do we know that it's not a result of X, Y, and Z factors that people have to use in making a decision? And then you can make a challenge on the advocate's evidence on that point a little bit better. All right, thank you.